Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we dupe a small town into thinking we're a magical wizard because this week we watched the Daemons.
Written by, quote, Guy Leopold, unquote.
Directed by, no quotes, Christopher Barry.
And aired from May 22nd to June 19th, 1971.
Yeah, here we are in the Third Doctor's era, just speeding through the Doctor's timeline.
Yeah, like we're Bessie or something. I can't remember, was the Whomobile before Bessie, or was Bessie before the Whomobile?
Wasn't it concurrent? Wasn't it just like Bessie just vanished for a little while and they were like, we've got the Whomobile now, and then they were like, nah.
Yeah, you can't just toss Bessie in the trash like that.
Well, you can. Just people don't have to be happy about it.
No, and they probably weren't. But this episode does give us the full dosage of Bessie.
The full dosage of Bessie, like it's some sort of medicine that we have to take.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, when people talk about modern Doctor Who being bad, they bring up various reasons, some of them valid and, well argued, and a lot of others less so. But I think really what people aren't saying and maybe aren't even realizing is that really all Doctor Who needs to be amazing again is Bessie, Make Doctor Who great again. With Bessie.
Look, if Chris Chibnall brought back Bessie, I bet a lot of older fans would instantly forgive him for some of the things they don't like.
Maybe, who knows? All I know is that I didn't remember, actually, that the Daemons was smack in the middle of Season 8, a.k.a. the Master Season. The season when the Third Doctor went up against the... Actually, season to introduce the Master to begin with, and the only season so far to feature the Master in all of its stories.
Right. And it makes absolutely zero effort to, hide the Master in the story. We just hear there's a new vicar in town, and then surprise, surprise, it's Roger Delgado.
Yeah, and I think I might be getting the order mixed up here, but don't they even go? Doesn't the Doctor even have that line of Joe, didn't you know, Joe? The Latin term for or magister means master in Latin, but that's after they already introduce the Master in the story. If I remember correctly, I might be getting that mixed up.
Yeah, it is. No, it's a solid 15 minutes after the Master has already shown up. It's more for the benefit of Joe than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, just it removes all I don't know, gravitas that line could have had. It's just okay, yeah, we know.
So we open in Devil's End, where some guy dies.
Yeah, it was a dark and stormy night in Devil's End, and this guy, he dies of fright, or at least, I believe that's what Hawthorne, the local witch, believes.
Yeah, the local white witch. Mm-hmm. Make sure you get it right.
She's wearing some sort of Egyptian ankh thing, or whatever. What is that symbol called? Yeah, it's an ankh. I just looked it up.
Yeah, an ankh.
Yeah, she's wearing one of those, which is interesting. It's never brought up, but in this part of the episode, you clearly see that she's kind of... I believe it's on a necklace. She's wearing it around her neck.
It's part of her deep witchy beliefs.
Yeah, really hinting that there's a larger backstory to this character. Hawthorne spin-off when...
Well, funny you should say that, actually, because that exists.
Oh my god.
Sort of. Kind of.
Olive Hawthorne. Who would have guessed?
She's in, or I should say that the actress, her name is in my notes somewhere. Oh, Damaris Heyman acts in this thing called White Witch of Devil's End, which I think was made for like because the BBC's been releasing those box sets of all the classic Who seasons one at a time. I think that was made for that, like that the season 8 box set.
God, that's so weird.
And it's like it follows. Yeah, so I was gonna read this at the end, but I guess I'll just read it now.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, this actually, on IMDb, this actually looks like straight up its own, like, DVD. Okay, well, anyway, with a blend of dramatic monologue enhanced with visualizations and sound design to develop and tell the stories, the drama is an anthology of tales following the magical life of Olive Hawthorne from childhood to her final days as the protector of Devil's End. Drawing on a rich heritage and appreciation of witchcraft and folklore, the stories bring Olive's history to life, pitting her against vampires, succubus, fae, demonic influence, and more. As guardian of Devil's End, she must do what she must to protect the village, but what
she must do what she
happens when she but what happens when she reaches the end of her life? Who will protect the townsfolk then? This was a summary written by IMDb user Gus F. Thanks, Gus.
Yeah, thanks. We would have never known what that was about without you.
We could have probably made a pretty good guess.
I mean, Gus made it sound pretty interesting. When we really start plumbing the depths of Doctor Who, we can maybe cover it.
No. Why would you even suggest such a thing?
I don't know. I mean, who knows?
Well, on IMDb they have the DVD cover, and then they have like the publicity shot of Damaris Heyman that they clearly used to make the DVD cover. Just weird flipping back and forth between the two, seeing how they photoshopped it into the DVD cover. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, so funny you should mention there being a spin-off, because there is, I guess. She's convinced, back to the story at hand. She's convinced that he died of fright. And the town doctor doesn't believe that. He's like, yeah, it's just a heart attack. Which, like, he's probably right. I mean, but they're probably both right, actually. The heart attack was probably brought on by the fright of, I don't know, evil.
The satanic goings-on that are going on. Yeah, I really railed into Gus for the must do what she must, and then now look at me. Goings on that are going on. Anyway, the Doctor and Jo are in this story too, surprisingly, so no, I'm just kidding. They are in the story, though, I'm not kidding about that. So the Doctor is like, he's fixing up Bessie a little bit, and then he's like, heh, watch this, and he starts remote controlling Bessie. And he's like, Jo asks how he's doing it, and he's like, magic. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's this remote controller.
She's like, oh, okay, sure. The Doctor says some, I don't know, mildly insulting line about how he'll never be able to teach Jo to be logical or something like that.
Yeah, throughout this whole episode, he has this sort of, it's not a subplot. It's not even like, it's almost nothing, where he keeps insisting that he wants to make Jo a scientist, help her make a scientist of herself. And you can tell, like, from the moment this sort of repetition of the Doctor, positing the value of science as opposed to, like, because Jo says it and then Hawthorne says it too. It's like, oh, this is black magic, and the Doctor's like, no, it's science. And you can tell as soon as this happens, like, at the very end, he's going to be like, guess magic does exist after all, wink, or something like that. And it happens, sure enough.
Great. Well, we see a TV broadcast, because I guess they've got the TV in their lab. Mm-hmm. And it's the BBC doing a special presentation of Professor Horner, who's like, I'm gonna dig into Devil's Burrow, basically, like Devil's Hill. And everyone's like, why would you do that? And he's like, I'm convinced there's things here. And everyone's like, okay, crazy old professor, I guess we'll make a TV broadcast about it.
Into the hill named Devil's Hill that the locals have considered profane for probably hundreds, if not thousands of years, and see what happens. Also, I'm a Doctor Who character, and this could not possibly go wrong.
I'm not wrong in like saying that there's not really any clearly motivated justification for this in the episode, right? That he's just like, I'm gonna dig into the hill.
I mean, he's just like this. I guess he's this archaeologist guy who just kind of wants to know what's there, right? So I guess that's his only motivation. I've seen pictures of things like this online where it's just like there's a name for it and there's a lot of history behind these. I don't really remember what it's all about though, but it's like in Britain there are these like man-made hills that are just like mounds of dirt, and they always contain like some sort of crypt or something like cool from ancient times or whatever. Yeah,
something cool.
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll look up a bit more about it and put some information there.
Nice.
Why don't we have those? You know, all we have is the like swathes of land that were cleared for roads and that now like are prone to rock slides and landslides.
So anyway, they're like, all right, Professor Horner. Then there's this hilarious scene where they're filming him outside and there's like clearly like a windstorm going on and you can't hear what they're saying like at all. It's like all you can hear is
I do like the, they're able to use, obviously because Doctor Who is from the BBC, they're able to use the BBC News here, and they just paint themselves as so utterly incompetent. But it's not unknowingly, or it's not unintentionally, right? There's always this, like, little wink of, like, yeah, BBC News.
Yeah, BBC News.
Although I guess this was back when, we've done our homework on this a little bit. This was back when there were really only, 3 or 4 channels in the UK?
Yeah.
So it's like, what other televised news was there besides the BBC? Was there anything? I don't know that there was. It was probably either the BBC
I
doing
don't know.
televised news, or you just read the newspaper or something.
It's amazing that, they're the only news station and still the only news that they can broadcast is some crazy professor who's like, I'm gonna dig into this mound and see what happens.
Yeah, what else was going on in 1971? They dedicated a night to this. Was it really that devoid of were they really grasping that heavily for oh shoot, we need something interesting? If you only have one news station, then this is probably a solid 30 minutes to an hour spent on this one little area. Right?
Yeah. Send one of your star reporters out to Devil's End of all places.
Yeah. Way out to the back of beyond. They do make some interesting observations here of I forget who says this, but someone's do you know when the last Witchcraft Act was repealed in the United Kingdom? It was 1951, I believe they say, which is damn. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's always something you look up the history behind this stuff, and it's stuff that you think was long in the, was people abandoned long ago, and that was really far in the past. It was actually not that far in the past at all. This whole witchcraft thing, and even here in the U.S., the example that I always bring up for this stuff is there were minstrel shows and programs even on TV until I believe it was the 60s, which is damn, really? But it's apparently true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the civil rights movement in the U.S. was within the past 50 to 75 years. Mm-hmm. It's really not as far back as some people think it was.
Right.
So anyway, Olive Hawthorne is like, I'm going to go check out the new vicar. You know, because I'm sure they'll help out, you know. And this is when, you know, she goes to the new vicar and surprise, surprise, it's the master. Like, shocking.
Yep, the master's plan this week / this 5 weeks, I guess, this is one of those rare 5-parters, is to, or was to, I guess, infiltrate Devil's End, revive us all, and be granted ultimate power.
Yeah, but like, geez, this is how you know the master is just terrible at like everything, because he picked the one time he's got a working time machine, and he picked the one time in Earth history where the Doctor is stranded on goddamn Earth in England, where he can not possibly be anywhere else. Like, come on, man.
There's probably multiple different incarnations of the Doctor running around at this point. Like, you never know.
But I'm saying, if he wanted to give himself the most opportunity, because when Azal comes back, he's like, look, there's another one of you here that I want to talk to who's more powerful than the humans, and I need to weigh my options. If the master had just picked, I don't know, any time in history when the Doctor wasn't hanging around on Earth, this plan would have gone vastly differently.
A couple years earlier. Well, I do love, and I actually forgot about this aspect of it, but I do love how much Roger Delgado's master feels like a Saturday morning cartoon villain in this season.
You throw back to him watching clangers in
yeah. In the Sea Devils.
In the Sea Devils, yeah. Being like, yes, I love this show. Clangers cast when.
Another aspect of this episode that I really liked is that this was back before Yates betrayed them all.
Yeah,
in the good old days.
I think I have a note here that's like, oh yeah, this is before Yates sells them all out. And I seem to remember Yates's reason for selling them out being pretty thin.
I don't remember what it was.
It was something
I want to say it was just like he was sick and tired of all the violence and the destruction the Doctor's presence was causing or something.
I think it was Invasion of the Dinosaurs, where he just thought that like they had a cool plan to save the world.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. And they were like, wow, Yates, wow, you've been working for us for years, and then just somebody tells you they'll revive dinosaurs and you sell us out. Wow.
Yeah, somebody dangles a little plastic stegosaurus in front of your face. That's what it is. They're not even real dinosaurs. They're just models. And and you go for it. Freaking Yates. Honestly, if somebody told me back when we were watching this for the first time that, you know, if someone said like either Benton or Yates is going to betray them, it's going to be one or the other, I would have put money on Benton.
Me too. Yep. 100% I would have guessed Benton, but anyway.
They really get you with that reveal that, like, you know, well, whatever.
Anyway, the Doctor's like, no, we gotta get out there. We gotta stop him from digging into that mound.
But they get cornered in the local pub, and people are like, we don't want to stop the dig. We think it's cool.
Yeah, we like that
Hawthorne
he's digging into our mound.
It's crazy. Yeah. You think they just dislike Hawthorne and they're only for the dig because she's against it? Kind of got that sense, you know? That they just, you know, think she's some sort of loon and are just like, well, she doesn't like it, so we do.
The perfect reason not to like something.
Exactly. It's a true contrarian take. Well, the Master is underneath the surface of the Earth, summoning us all in the little crypt thing that's there. And he does that,
Yep, and that's where episode 1 ends. And episode 2 begins, so the Doctor like gets knocked out, knocked over, knocked some sideways, I don't know. Gets crushed by the excavation site. In episode 2, it's like, just imagine if this is how the Doctor died, just like permanently. Was just like trapped because they dug into this mound. But it's not. He wakes up and he's like, yeah, I'm fine, guys.
Thinking back to the anything goes nature of early Doctor Who, like, there's there's another timeline where the Doctor legitimately does die, and it's like, it's not too many timelines removed from our own. Like, yeah, I mean, I imagine a world where the Doctor is written out of Doctor Who early on.
Just a show about, like, Joe.
Well, exactly. It's like, it would just be about Unit or something. It would be during this era, right? It was like the Doctor dies, and then it's just a show about Unit or something.
So it's just like, it's just Torchwood, but on a 70s budget with like half the creativity because they have less lore to draw from.
Yeah, something like that, at least. Well, the Doctor gets frozen in this process. I don't remember how that happens. I think Azal's half summoning here has something to do with it. Because the Master doesn't fully succeed in summoning Azal at this point. Obviously, because the ceremony gets interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor, as a result, gets frozen. I don't remember how that happens, but he winds up, like, encased in ice. Not encased in ice, but just his temperature is lowered or something like that. And he goes into some sort of catatonic state.
Well, he gets freed by the end of the episode. So we do get lots of point of view shots from Bach while all of this is happening.
Yeah.
I totally forgot Bach was in this.
No, I remembered Bach, actually. I just forgot how big a part of a presence he was. He wasn't really too major of a character or anything. He just sort of zapped a couple people, but we do get a lot of him on screen.
Well, he's running around causing havoc the whole episode.
Yeah, his appearance and his costume and everything is great. He's just a gargoyle come to life and loving it. And he has that permanently stuck out tongue. Like he's just sort of, I don't know, ruining your day, but he's enjoying it too. Like he's really enjoying
Basically,
it.
The entire budget, the special effects budget for this episode went into Bach. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, because he doesn't do this at this point, but later in the episode, he zaps like some people out of existence with his like little laser hand thing.
Did you notice, like, during these shots, there's a street sign. I think it's actually when the brig decides to drive up. There's a street sign that says, like, Devil's End this way, and then the other, like, sign on the street sign looks like it says, like, Satan Hill Street. Like,
yeah, Satan Hall.
It's like,
you can either go to Devil's End or Satan Hall. Take your pick. Or Satan Hill or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Benton and Yates have decided that they need to get involved at this point, so they take the brig's helicopter and go to Devil's End. And there's this great scene, one of the best in the story, of the brig is sleeping, and he gets a call about Benton and Yates having taken his helicopter, and it's already a close-up of his face. Like, it's already legitimately a close-up shot of his face. And it zooms in even more, and he goes, "They what?" Or something along those lines.
Well, because it starts really low key. He's like, I don't think they tell him off the bat that they took the helicopter. They just say, "Oh, Ben and Yates are out," and they're like, "Okay, well, give me the doctor then." It's like, "Oh, well, the doctor's like frozen and gone." It's like, "Okay, well, wake up Joe then." They're like, "Sorry, Joe's gone as well." Then he's like, well, who's there?" And they're like, "Oh, by the way, Benton and Yates took your helicopter." And he's like, "They took my what?" So the brig, by virtue of having his helicopter stolen by his subordinates, is forced to take like the unit van up to Devil's End, which takes him like an hour, a couple hours, because it's like straight the next afternoon when he arrives, and they discover that the entire town is surrounded by the dome from Stephen King's Under the Dome.
Or the Simpsons movie.
Or the Simpsons movie.
Yeah, it really just goes to show you, like, I know UNIT is a a paramilitary organization, or is actually a military organization, but it's like, when you live in a small country like the UK, it's like, hey, want to go to blank, and it's like, yeah, and you just you get in your car or you get on a public transportation, and bam, you're there. Versus like in the US, it's like, hey, want to go to blank, and it's like, well, we could, but that would take a week to get there, so we can't.
Like, hey, want to go to New York? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pay for a plane ticket, so I guess I'll see you there in 5 days.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I don't know. The UK isn't that small, but it's like, it's pretty small to where it's like, if you wanted to see something cool in London, for example, and you lived probably out in the countryside, you could probably do that, like, reasonably cheaply and easily.
Yeah, well, bringing it all back around, it's not like we have a train system that'll get you from here to there either. Your only option is to drive.
Just walk. Cross-country walk.
I guess you could walk, yeah. All right. Walk cross-country.
Probably, like, die out in a desert somewhere.
Hitchhike.
Yeah.
Anyway, the brig calls up... the brig calls them up and gets a summary, and there's this really funny thing where he goes like, okay, so the doctor's frozen, Joe's missing, Benton and Yates have gone off looking for the doctor, and the town White Witch thinks that this is all some sort of magical event, right? Have I got it right? I think actually it's Benton goes, yep, that's about sums it up. And then there's another, it's followed by another really funny scene because the doctor takes Joe like into the crypt and he's like, try lift that rock. And she's like, I can't. And he's like, it's because it's stuck to the ground. And she's like, oh, be serious. And then he does the like, okay, well, in the beginning there was nothing, because he goes, okay, well, I'll be serious then. 100,000 years ago. Like,
right.
Really? You're going to start this story 100,000 years ago?
The doctor instantly knows what's going on with the Daemons and all of that. But yeah, it was a funny moment where he's like, well, in the beginning, there was nothing. And yeah, exactly what you just said. But meanwhile, Hawthorne has been... I don't remember how this happens or like what sequence of events causes this to happen, but Hawthorne is like locked in the like... It's not the crypt area from later on. It's just the church, I guess. So Benton actually goes in and he kind of hears her cries for help, I believe, and he opens up the little tomb thing. She's in there. And it's just like, whoa. Maybe it was just me. I had that moment of like, whoa, she's really, been trapped in there this whole time. But because I don't remember how she got trapped in there. Maybe I'm just forgetting.
I don't remember either. She's just stuck there, I guess.
Yeah, some witch she is. Can't even get out. They decide, though, to... I think they see the master coming from outside, and they're like, quick, into this satanic crypt. So they go underground, and they find the master's little ceremony area that he's been using to revive us all. And
he tries again, and it doesn't work.
This is also where they introduce the heat shield. One of the most memorable things that this episode introduced. The brig can't get into Devil's End because, yeah, like we mentioned before, it's surrounded by a heat shield. Anything that touches it bursts into flames, so he's stuck, and spends basically the rest of the story trying to get in.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that Sergeant Osgood, not to be confused with future Osgood of the unit, doesn't know how the damn machine he built per the doctor's instruction works.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling this way when we first watched the Daemons, but I did feel that the portions with the brig and Osgood trying to break through the shield dragged a lot. Like, I just felt they were just really slow, and they just kind of impeded the faster-paced action that we saw going on inside the town.
Yeah, they dragged a little bit, but I also thought they were pretty funny. Like when Osgood's like, I don't know how the machine works, and I don't want to turn on the overload, and the brig just goes, damn it, man, we're doing it!
Yeah, yeah.
That was funny.
Kind of. I like the part where he's like, the brig is like, how much longer? And Osgood's like, just about done, and it blows up in his face, and he's like, another hour, or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, one more minute, never mind.
But then, yeah, this episode then ends at episode 2. That is, ends with the whole like Doctor going, "At the beginning of time."
And then episode 3, they escape from the crypt. And then this is when the Doctor learns about the heat shield, because the brig is basically still trying to get through. He has some survey teams out. They discover that it's 10 kilometers in diameter. It encircles the city. The RAF comes and drops some like seismic charges on it and discover that it's, I think, like a mile high, they said.
Mm-hmm. Really?
So basically they're in a dome. The Doctor calls it a lethal mushroom. Wow. They're trapped inside a lethal mushroom.
I was really reminded of Children of the Stones at this point. You know, obviously not the same deal, but like the town surrounded by a circle and it's bad for some reason. You know, it's a small town out in the countryside of England.
It's kind of the same thing. I was thinking that too when I watched it.
I like these sort of settings, like Devil's End or Avebury was the real town. Millbury, I believe, was from Children of the Stones, which, you know, they're just sort
Millbury.
of these small towns out in the middle of nowhere, and there's, you know, something satanic or wrong going on.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, both this and Children of the Stones, come to think of it, they have that mixture of ancient, you know, mythology and legend and magic, and then they also incorporate the sci-fi stuff. I really like that combination and that vibe. I wish I knew of more things that did that. I'm sure there's more in books than there is in like TV and stuff like that, but yeah. Yeah,
it's easier to explore that kind of thing in a book, I think, because you can really dive deep into the like culture and just things that are going on.
Right.
Anyway, now the Doctor really explains 10,000 years ago the Daemons showed up, the Daemons from Deimos, great, and had basically been manipulating Earth's history for 10,000 years, basically treating Earth as like an experiment in a petri dish.
Yeah, and at this point in the episode, I started despising this story. You know, how dare they? How dare... How dare Guy Leopold, a.k.a. Barry Letts, and what was his name? Robert Sloman, I believe. Because did we mention that at the beginning? Guy Leopold is just a pseudonym for Barry Letts.
Yeah, you said, quote, Guy Leopold, unquote, but didn't explain.
Right. Well, Guy Leopold is a pseudonym, if you don't know, for Barry Letts. And was it Robert Sloman? Something Sloman.
Yeah, Robert Sloman.
Yeah, Robert Sloman. Well... How dare they? How dare they introduce this non-established concept that doesn't mesh with anything we've seen before? They even pin Atlantis on the Daemons when we've clearly seen, it's clearly been canonized that Atlantis was something completely different in the Doctor Who universe. So they're really just not respecting the canon here, really just doing whatever they want, and I won't accept it.
Yeah, you're right. They're just blistering through canon, ignoring previously established facts, retconning it in their new story without any care for the old lore. Just unacceptable. Just completely unacceptable.
Exactly.
And you're right, we have seen Atlantis before, and it was never said to be the Daemons, and yet now it is. How dare they? Who are we supposed to believe?
Yeah, we just don't know. There just is no answer.
Again, clearly we're never going to let people live that down.
Yeah. Yeah, we really aren't. I wonder why that's become... I was thinking about this recently. I wonder why that's the whole canon thing has become such a larger discussion in... I want to say maybe the past year. Ever since the Timeless Children aired, basically, when, you know, it always was, I guess I just answered my own question, but it always was a discussion before that, and then Timeless Children aired, and then people started, like, really caring.
Yeah, because Timeless Children was, I was going to say it's the first time it's, like, majorly changed anything about canon since the reboot came back, but it's not, because remember when we blew up Gallifrey twice now.
And it's like, it's so weird too, and I can't believe we're touching on this now, in, over a year since it aired, but rewatching these early episodes and thinking back to like the second and third Doctor's era, the Timeless Children's reveal is not as like I don't want to say consequential. It's not as like in opposition to the overall, established things that we've seen before as some of these things were in the early seasons. Like, it's not even like the regeneration cycle thing or, the Doctor being from Gallifrey are all bigger than what we saw in the Timeless Children. Because, the Doctor wasn't originally from Gallifrey, right? He was always an alien, but they had never really established his background until a couple seasons in. More with the second Doctor,
until the War Games, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't a Time Lord until the War Games.
Yeah, and let's not forget the like multiple retconnings of the like Daleks' origin story within the classic show. Like first they're like the Thals had a radioactive war, and then there's like Genesis of the Daleks, which is like, oh, they were the crazed genetic experiment of some mad scientist.
Written by the same person, might we add.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's not forget that we blew up Skaro in the Seventh Doctor. Was it Destiny of the Daleks or Day of the Daleks?
I can't remember. It wasn't Destiny. Destiny was with the Fourth Doctor.
Whatever the Seventh Doctor one was.
The Mavellan War, they introduced that as well, the whole Mavellan Dalek thing.
Yeah. And
I guess that's not in opposition to anything else.
Skaro just like being around again in the reboot, like.
Yep. Christopher Eccleston will always go down, will go down in history, in my mind at least, as having been right when he said that Doctor Who needs to disregard
Great
canon.
For the third week in a row. I'm going to link that in the show notes.
Yes.
I agree.
We don't have to. Everyone knows what we're referring to, probably, who's listening to this.
Yeah, but I agree still. He's 100% right and always has been. Anyway, let's get back to the episode at hand.
Always has been. Yeah.
Talking about canon that's being rewritten. The Doctor's like, Osgood, I need you to build this device, and he's like, I don't know what that is. He's like, okay, I'll drive out to the heat barrier to tell you what it is, and then another scene, like earlier when the wind was going. We now got the heat barrier noise like overlaid over the Doctor and the brig talking. It sounds like just like underneath they're talking for their entire scene here. I was like, great. Good attention to detail in the sound department, but also like really annoying attention to detail.
Yeah. Really puts you in the character's shoes of like having a really annoying sound and they're trying to talk.
Yeah.
Just an overpowering, blaring, crackling, basically.
Look, I'm just glad that I'm not the one who has to try to figure out what the hell the Doctor wants me to build.
I'm just glad that this heat shield that the episode describes is actually real and still in place around the town of Devil's End, because when I, eventually depart this mortal coil... I want to choose my own terms, and I'm going to drive at over 100 miles an hour, probably, straight into this heat shield someday.
You can drive over 100 miles an hour into other things and achieve the same effect, right? Or at the very least, a similar effect. Or is that just like not up your alleyway?
No, I prefer the heat shield, just go out in a blaze of glory, literally. Except minus the glory, because, yeah. I guess there's nothing, too glorious about it, or about my life, so.
Wow, that was a depressing statement. Okay. Well, all right then.
Well, someone from the town just randomly decides to steal the helicopter.
I think they're under orders from the master to do this. I don't think it's just them being like,
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't say it that way, but yeah, I said it in a more humorous way. Yeah, as if this had nothing to do with the story at hand and was just someone like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I've always wanted one of these.
So they steal the helicopter. They're like chasing the doctor as he drives out to talk to the brig. And then they just watch as he flies into the heat shield and blows up. And the brig's like, well, that's hundreds of thousands of pounds of unit money up in smoke.
Yeah, thanks, Benson and Yates, for taking this thing out. As all this is going on, actually slightly before it, the master has called a town meeting. Everyone in town packs into a small room.
It's the pub, I think. The only other set in the story besides the summoning room.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that is a set or if they just used... Because they obviously were in some sort of, village location and they did some location shooting, right? I mean...
Yeah, they did some sort of location shots here, so maybe it was the actual pub.
Yeah, I don't imagine it was... But who knows?
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work for like very little reward since no one in the audience is going to really care or know.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we could always check on that one site that I just remembered existed for the first time in like 3 years that lists like all the classic Doctor Who filming locations and their current status.
Yeah, I wonder if that site even still exists.
Yeah, I can't even remember what it's called. I think it was just like DoctorWhoLocations.com or something like that.
Good luck finding it again, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing with Doctor Who is that it's such an old, series relatively, and yet it's still so popular that and it remains so popular into the wilderness era of there's so much on the early internet about Doctor Who. There's so much that's surprisingly still there, and imagine how much more is just gone, completely removed from anyone being able to access it, never archived or anything.
Yeah. It's a weird microcosm of history, really.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think episode 3 actually just ends with the Master trying to summon Azal again.
Yeah, Azal goes out of control this time.
Yeah. Azal is like, why did you summon me, man? He's like, I want your power. Azal's like, well, there's another being here who's just as superior to the humans as you are. And the Master's like, no, you don't want him. You want me. And the guy's like, no, I definitely want the other guy.
I was like, well, I did want you, but now that you said that, I don't want you anymore. I want the other guy. Is this story the first instance of reverse the polarity?
No, I don't think so.
No. It could have been a two for, introducing 5 rounds rapid and reverse the polarity, but yeah, I guess it's not. I couldn't remember.
I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure we've had it at this point. If I remember our discussion when we watched this episode originally.
Yeah, back in 2015. God.
Wow, thanks for reminding me how old the podcast is.
Yeah. The fact that 2015 is 6 years ago is kind of mind-boggling.
Feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, when someone is 10 years ago, I'm like, yeah, so 2002, right? 2003?
When you meet kids who are born in kids who are born in 2015 and they're like, I'm 6 now, and you're like, what? They're like, yeah, I was born in 2015. Like, all right, great, making me feel old. Even though I'm not that old.
Yeah, really. We're not even that old. Time is just moving faster. Time
is an illusion, okay?
Yeah, how can All right, whatever. I was going to do a Jaden Smith thing, but it didn't work.
Anyway, episode 4, they kind of just bum around. You know, they fall into the episode 5 of the 6-episode story slump in episode 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, they definitely do.
They do at the end tie up the Doctor under the Master's orders, because the Master's like, he's a witch. He's a black witch. He's not a white witch. And so we're supposed to burn him at the stake, but not before they all come out and do like a May Day celebration, and they're like, "Oh wow, look, it's what a lovely time. It's May Day in Devil's End."
Yeah, and they
go out. Yeah,
they tie the Doctor up to the maypole, and that's what they're about to burn him at. That's their version of the stake or something, I believe.
Yeah,
because we didn't mention actually that this is all taking place on May Day and Beltane, which I don't know how I remember this, but back when we first watched this, we had like an extensive discussion about Beltane.
Yeah, I don't know how you remember that either, because I don't remember that at all.
But we were like, what is Beltane? You know, we didn't know. And I still am pretty vague on what it is. But yeah. Great.
In 5 years, we didn't make any progress into figuring it out. Quality podcast.
We did figure it out. We just forgot. / I just forgot.
Nice. Good.
Beltane was a pagan festival on Earth which began at midnight on 30 April, that is, the first minute of the first day of May. Professor Gilbert Horner described it as the greatest occult festival of the year, bar Halloween. TV, the Daemons.
Thanks, I guess.
Well, they decide that, like we mentioned before, they're not going to suffer a witch to live, but the Doctor breaks out of their restraints by pretending to be all-powerful. He, Hawthorne, and Benton have this sort of unspoken demonstration of his power, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, wouldn't have worked if it weren't for Olive coming out and being like, "Hey, Doc, you're a magical wizard, right?" He's like, and she's like, "Just blow that lamp up," and he's like, "What?" Like, just trust me. Of course, like you said, Benton's in on it, and he shoots the lamp out basically from
afar,
from the pub, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not actually entirely certain where he's holed up here.
He's just hiding somewhere out of sight, and he's shooting all these things as the Doctor pretends to use his magical abilities to do so.
But then to drive it home, the Doctor's like, "I'm going to bring that yellow car to me." And the car's like, "Beep, beep, here I come. It's me, Bessie." It doesn't actually do that, but it would have been funny if it did.
Imagine if Bessie talked.
Oh, God. You can change one thing about Doctor Who and everything else has to remain the same. What do you change? Bessie talks.
God. Well, yeah, Joe gets captured. And that's the end of the episode. Like we mentioned before, this was definitely just the like, oh shoot, this has to be 5 episodes for some reason. Filler episode.
But then it all comes to a head in episode 5.
Yeah, when we see the true extent of us all, and he's huge.
He's also just clearly a man in front of, like, the equivalent of a green screen.
Yeah, I mean...
overlaid in front of the footage of the Doctor and the Master, like, just overlaid over footage of John Pertwee and... Roger Delgado, like, reacting to the guy getting big. It's just low budget. I'm only mentioning it because it's kind of charming in a way.
Is this CSO? I don't know.
I mean, it would have to be, right?
I guess. Probably, yeah, I just don't know for sure. I didn't mind how it looked. I liked the look of this story, mostly probably because I liked the setting, but I liked it overall.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I just thought it was kind of goofy and worth pointing out.
Well, I totally forgot that the last portion of this episode was actually just a long conversation.
the brig does eventually get into the dome, thanks to Osgood figuring out how the device works. And so they break through the heat shield, and they call up the doctor, and they're like, "Oh, we're in." And he's like, "Oh, did you bring the device?" The brig's like, "No, it's still outside the heat shield. We're bringing it in now." And the doctor makes a good point where he's like, "That probably should have been the first thing to come through the heat shield, but all right." But to the brig's credit, turns out it was probably smart to leave it last, since it just basically incinerates itself the instant they bring it through the heat shield.
Yeah, so basically how the end of this story plays out is that outside unit is combating the forces of evil or something, which is basically just Bach. Great satanic army you got
basically
there.
Just Bach.
I mean, he is kind of wrecking them, though, for portions of the battle. And inside, Azal is having this sort of conversation, I guess, or debate with the Doctor and the Master, because the Doctor comes out and is like, "You know what? Why are you doing this, man? Why don't you just leave, Why don't you just go home?"
And Azal is like, "Yeah, I could do that, but then I would have to admit that humanity is a failed experiment."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Daemons don't want to die.
And you know what we do to failed... You know what we do to failed experiments? We blow them up. Like, okay.
The Master,
sure,
is still
I guess.
pitifully, trying to plead for Azal's power in the background.
And Azal's like, "Nah, I'm going to give it to the Doctor instead." And the Doctor's like, "No, don't do that. I don't want it." And Azal's like, "All right, well, then I guess, we're back to square one. I'll just blow you up."
He says he's going to start, I believe, by killing everyone there. And Joe reacts by jumping in front of the Doctor and saying, No, you can't kill him. Take me instead," which just overloads Azal's circuits, just shorts him out. He can't understand this. He can't fathom what's going on. And he just melts into like a little puddle. Not really, but he sort of just shrinks. And he's like, No, how could anyone ever do this? No, I don't understand.
In all honesty, I had completely forgotten the ending to this story. So when it was just like the power of love saves the day, I was like, really?
Well, it's it's a power of love ending, I guess. But it's like Azal and the Daemons have no concept of self-sacrifice or something. So, and it just destroys them from the inside out, I guess. But then, I'm not surprised you didn't remember this, because I didn't either. And that's probably because it's from here on out, it's so low key. They just leave the church and they're like, "Well, that was weird." And the entire world was almost just destroyed. Joe almost died, and the Doctor just looks at her and he's just like, "You saved the day," and she's like, "I did."
Yeah, he has to explain to her what happened. He's like, "Oh yeah, they didn't understand that you could self-sacrifice, and so you saved the day." And she was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Yeah,
I
really
guess
not painting Joe in the best of lights here.
Anyway, then they're like, "Hey, maybe we should let's do the fertility dance." So Yates is like, "Hey Brig, you want to do the fertility dance with me?" And he's like, "Well, that's a very kind offer, Yates, but I'd rather get a pint."
And that's how it ends. Yeah, they try and arrest the Master too, but he tries to escape, but then they get him using Bessie's remote control. And I thought for sure...
Yeah, he tries to steal Bessie.
I thought for sure when the brig asked the Doctor how he did that, how he, brought Bessie back, he was gonna either look at the brig or look into the camera and wink and be like, "Magic." After all after the whole thing where he was science. I thought he was gonna, do a 180 and be like, it was all magic or something like that. Even though it's not, obviously. But there was a missed opportunity though, because they do something similar where it's the final shot of the episode is the fertility dance around the Mayday dance or whatever it is. And the Doctor just randomly, in response to nothing, just goes, "I guess magic is real after all. Joe, you were right." And then it ends. And he's just like, what?
Yeah, unprompted, unexplained. Like, okay, if you say so. Whatever, Doc, you're the boss.
Yeah, and I just really feel that my own idea, obviously me, never having written any screenplays or, nothing, I feel that my idea would have been superior. Because it would have
I agree.
It would have retained, the whole doctor is a proponent of science while still having that, like, wink, literally. How I would have done it is with a literal wink. This is why we're one of the many reasons why we aren't in charge of Doctor Who. But still have that wink of, like, it was all magic or something like that.
This is one of the many reasons we would be better if we were, better if we were in charge of Doctor Who.
Yeah, when they remade Mission to the Unknown a couple years ago, why didn't they call us up? I still wonder that. Every night as I'm trying to fall asleep, I'm still just toss and turn and be like, where was that phone call? Did I miss something?
Can you imagine if they had done that? Like, can you imagine?
So we found you guys as
two random Doctor Who.
We just really feel that you have some good ideas. The Rock is the Doctor, and that's a stroke of genius if I've ever heard one.
That's inspired casting. The Radio Times article? 2 podcasters put in charge of recreating old Doctor Who story. More at 11.
Beloved missing Doctor Who story. I don't know. I don't know
if I describe Mission to Unknown as beloved.
Exactly. I would describe the Daemons, though, as beloved to me. I forgot just how enjoyable this episode was, and yeah, it had its moments where it was like, all right, just get on with it. Namely, a lot of the stuff with Unit and the Heat Shield, I just thought, again, clashed with what we were seeing in other parts of the episode that was more interesting. But overall, I would say this was a really good story.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree.
Which is why we watched it for this run of
exactly.
Redux episodes. Yeah.
Exactly. We made a good choice. I will say going into it, I was a little skeptical. I was like, oh, is it actually going to be that good? Maybe we're misremembering. Maybe it's like, for Keon, Tomb of the Cybermen. But it wasn't. I did enjoy this, and I enjoyed, again, Pertwee's portrayal of the Doctor and Joe Grant. It was nice to see Joe again. That was what I was most excited for going into this story.
Yeah, and I had not forgotten, but it's like back when we watched the Third Doctor for the first time, I wasn't too fond of him. I felt that this was mostly in season 7, but I felt that also overall he just came across as like he's kind of he's snarky and he's very in charge in a lot of scenes, and especially in season 7, I felt that came across as like he overdid it almost. I felt he was mean. But this time around, I was okay with it. The Third Doctor has never been one of my favorite Doctors, but yeah, I didn't think it was as bad as I remembered it being. Though again, like I said, it was mostly in season 7 that I thought that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, when he's with Liz Shaw, it's. I mean, I think he softens a lot with Joe, and I think we talked about this actually on the podcast back when we covered this originally.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what would you say this is your favorite of the Third Doctor's era? Because it's not mine. I still think The Mutants is probably my favorite Third Doctor story.
I would need a list of Third Doctor stories. Hang on, let me pull one up. I wouldn't say that I would. This is my favorite. The Green Death, I remember really liking personally.
Yeah, that's one that's one of the first.
Yeah, Green Death is probably the one I would say is my favorite.
Yeah. That was one of the first Doctor Who stories that kind of reviled me. Not because I think it's bad, but just because of the, like, maggots with fangs.
It really activated your almonds.
Yeah. I haven't heard that in, like, 4 years, but yeah, sure. I guess that's all I had to say about this one.
Yeah, I think so too, actually. Really enjoyed it. Loved seeing I'm glad we picked a story that had the Brig and Yates and Benton in it as well, because we could have easily picked like Carnival of Monsters and just like not seen them at all.
Yeah, most Third Doctor stories have at least some unit members in them, I believe. It's only a handful that don't. But yeah, I am glad that we picked one with the whole team as well.
And then, we're deep into the Fourth Doctor's era next week.
Yeah, revisiting.
So Britain's 10 actors.
Yeah, it's gonna be a trip revisiting Genesis of the Daleks. That's actually the one to me, like going into this entire rewatch, that I thought was like gonna be the one where we have to see, like, does this really hold up? Is it really as great as we said it was back then? We'll have to see.
I'm thinking it will be. But we're going to have to find out. Britain's 10 actors. I only looked up Damaris Heyman, which is how I found out about that spin-off.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just going to go for it. Damaris, so her biggest role was in Pink Panther Strikes Again. But also Zakars, Miss Pemberton, the White Witch of Devil's End, The Bill, something called The Witch's Brew, Comedy Playhouse, something called The Magnificent 6.5. She actually has a lot of acting credits, but not a lot that I recognize. So that's it for me, for the ones that seemed large or recognizable.
Well, I looked up two actors in this, and I guess the way we did it, I'm gonna end up doing two in a row. But yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever.
So I looked up Stanley Mason, who played Bach. This is one of 3 acting credits of his. All his roles were from 1970 or 1971, but he also was in I don't know how to pronounce this, the More Came and Wise show. I have no idea what that is. And he was in Monty Python's Flying Circus in 1970 as 3 different roles, one of which was uncredited.
Nice.
Yeah. He also played himself in 2011 in it's a Doctor Who documentary. It was the Unit Family Part 2, which is obviously some sort of according to IMDb, it's a video documentary short, so it's obviously some sort of unit, look back or something. And he played himself in Montreux 1971. No idea what that is. And that's it, other than his archive footage credit in Sarah Jane Adventures. So very small acting career, but hey, he did a good job as Bach. Got to run around in a gargoyle suit for a while. So hey, job well done. And then I also looked up Stephen Thorne, who played Azal. His most famous Doctor Who role actually is probably as Omega. Yeah, he played Omega. He also played Eldrad in The Hand of Fear. And he played another Doctor Who role as well. I don't have it. Oh, he played the first Ogron in Frontier in Space. All right. But yeah, he doesn't have too extensive of a career, but he was in a bunch of other things. The In, Way Out, Z-Cars / Z-Cars / Zakars, Come Back Lucy, Sexton Blake and the Demon God. Sounds like some sort of weird mashup of like Blake 7, this, and just who knows what else. So he played Aslan's, he was the voice actor for Aslan in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 1979. He was in Crossroads. Yeah, I can see that with his voice in this, his voice in as Azal. I can see that. He was in Crossroads, Death of an Expert Witness, Valhalla, David Copperfield, Shakespeare, The Animated Tales. His last role was in something called Last of the Summer Wine in 2006. And he actually died just a couple years ago, May 26th, 2019. So, yeah.
Damn. Recently. I wonder how many actors from old Doctor Who we've lost since the podcast started.
A lot, probably.
Over the 6 years the podcast has existed.
7. Yeah, we started in 2014. Right. Yeah.
I always forget that.
A lifetime ago.
Actually, though.
Well, even though we are going on hiatus in a couple weeks, just as a reminder, we probably still have a lifetime's worth of podcasting left in front of us.
That's true. The road never ends.
Until it does. Well, just to end on a downer note, why end on an upbeat look towards the future? Just why? There's no good reason.
Well, we have an email this week. It may be related. The subject line is time travel. We actually received this email not 10 minutes after stopping recording last week. So we're recording this on the 24th of April. We actually received this at like 9:30 p.m. on the 17th of April. What is up, guys? No, we don't know each other, but as far as my emails go, I'll be taking on a one-sided conversation because I have your content and you have no idea about me. Anyway, I feel like I get to have this time travel relationship with you guys because you have already recorded many episodes and I get to guess how you'll feel and react accordingly. Anyway, I was thinking about the Rose-Doctor relationship and feeling like Keon, spelt correctly the first time, actually.
Yep.
And then in parentheses, Keon, Lion. I should have actually looked at how to spell your name. Sorry, mine is spelled Rich-E, pronounced Richie. So, Clara, I feel like you're going to be annoyed by her infatuation with the Doctor, and I think you will come around and really like her as a companion, then hate her conclusion. I'll get to hear about it and maybe your rebuttal in a few months. As my fake time travel idea goes, I will possibly get to hear if I'm right or wrong months and months from the writing of this email and years after you've made a conclusion on your feelings of Clara. So I will continue my way through your episodes. I work 9 hours a day, and that's a lot of time to fill with podcasts, so you guys get 2 episodes a day, so I will catch up pretty quick. Anyway, thank you both. Keep it up. Richie. Well, I think the overall theory you have, Richie, ends up being correct, that Keon, at least, and I don't remember, maybe me to an extent too, were slightly, put off by Clara's infatuation with the Doctor. But I think we both really liked her by the end. I'm still disappointed by her ride out, but, hey, what are you going to do?
Clara's still my favorite New Who companion, I think, barring pre-Chibnall. Not barring pre-Chibnall. That was...
only pre-Chibnall.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
I think we both, you said.
Yeah, I actually forgot that.
I think we both were annoyed with Clara's infatuation with the Doctor. I think maybe my annoyance just came off stronger because you'd already seen those episodes, so you knew what was coming, perhaps.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I knew that it was going to fade pretty quickly, especially when Peter Capaldi would take up the role of the Doctor, not the role of Clara, to be clear. So yeah, you got a good head on your shoulders, Richie. You've been paying attention to the podcasts. There's going to be a test at the end.
Yeah. No, there won't.
If the end ever comes.
Yeah, that's how we should end the podcast, is with like a...
with a test.
Yeah, but like an SAT length and like, just required essays and stuff.
I wouldn't even know enough about our own podcast to compose a test at the end of the show. Oh, well. Anyway, thanks for reaching out, though, Richie. Really appreciate, the kind email, the kind comment. Glad you're listening to the show. Always like hearing that people are enjoying our content.
Yeah, thank you, Richie. Well, I don't think we got any comments on Facebook or Twitter that were Doctor Who related, at least, so there's that.
They were Lex related, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast, on which we're watching Lex. Unfortunately.
Hey, we're almost done.
Yeah.
Almost done. Well, with season 1. We've received like a non-trivial amount of comments that were like, hey, even though you hate Lex, podcasts are pretty funny. Like listening to you hate watch Lex. Like, great. Thank you.
There's an element of schadenfreude to it, you know? Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, that wraps up Daemons for me. So if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decoratevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the Daemons and Genesis of the Daleks for next week. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you find podcasts at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And yeah, like you mentioned, next time we're going to be diving once again into Genesis of the Daleks. But until then, the end.